Let me move you guys in as close as I can for this one. Hello, gang. Thank you for joining me today. Just about have all my monitors up and running. I've learned a few things in the last week or so. That's good. And we're still having, by the way, a few friends on Facebook. Welcome. I'm so glad to be able to be back broadcasting on Facebook like I was 3 years ago. But we're languishing because of technology. So if you want to watch a more robust stream of this broadcast, then just go on over to YouTube Dan Nelson, and the stream is better over there. But if you want to stay where you are, that's great. I hope our stream is, as I said, more robust today than it was yesterday. Be that as it may, welcome to all of you. So I'm working on this little girl. I need to start asking my clients, please supply me with a name. I have no idea what this sweet little girl's name is, and nor do I know what the relationship is between the girl and my friend for whom I'm doing it. I'm quite sure my friend doesn't have any children, so I don't think this is her, or children this age anyway. So I don't know who it is. This sweet little girl at the beach. Let me take a minute though to expand out here and say good morning. Happy coronavirus day to you all. I hope that continues to be mildly funny. It's not funny at all. Anyway, I hope we're going to come out of this. All right, Daily Art Adventure number 881. Woohoo! Yes, sir, we have done this 880 times. And counting, as you can see. So I have 6 portraits in process here. I started, I can't remember, at the beginning of this week or at the end of next week. Whoops, a little bit of trouble with our Facebook. Sorry about that. Like, as I said, Facebook, if you want a better stream, go over to YouTube. But glad to have you on board anyway. All right, so I'm to the point in most of my portraits, this batch of 6, where on most of them I'm close. This one is exactly, of course, technically, this painting would not be called a portrait at all. But I put the word out there. I said I'll do your portrait for $350, which I'm sure most of you understand is ridiculously cheap. And I'm still making that offer, by the way. Still have some openings for next week. If you want me to do a portrait, it's $350 per person. I hope you understand. The effort and time involved is not in filling up a canvas. It doesn't take but 30 seconds to fill up a canvas. The time and effort is in achieving a likeness. So that's why it's $350 more per person. This is a very unusual trick. Once again, it's jumbo jet black, a pencil, kind of like a grease, not as greasy as a grease pencil, but more greasy than a Conte crayon, if I may. Distributed by Jerry's Autorama, and apparently these pencils are out of Austria. At least that's what I was told. So very unconventional to be using pencils in an oil painting. Okay, so I just want you to know that. This is not typical. If there are any students watching me, don't go back to your high school or college art class and say, hey, I didn't know we could use pencils in oil paintings. Because it is not traditionally done. So I'm doing a untraditional medium. I'm finding though that for this kind of thing, especially really small portraits like this, the pencil gives me a different kind of mark than the brush does, of course. Duh, right? The pencil makes a different kind of mark, and it helps me distinguish between so when I can see pencil marks, then my brain instantly recognizes that the pencil mark is a correction, or the pencil mark is a sort of a, I don't know how to, a technical change. It says, okay, wait, you've made an adjustment here. Pay attention. Once the whole thing becomes paint, then it's just a painting, if you will. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all. But anyway, the fact that the pencil line is different, of different nature than the wow, it's already starting to look like her. That's nice. All right, I did not pre-mix any flesh tones here on my palette, as I often like to do. But didn't do it this morning. So now I'm mixing up titanium white, oxide red, which is of course a brown, very much like burnt sienna, oxide red, and yellow ochre. And once again, this what I call a death control grip. Not ideal, not an ideal grip for painting, but every rule can be broken, right? You just have to know when to break it. And this is one of those times. If you're doing, here's the exception. Hear ye, hear ye. If you're if you're doing a portrait that's ½ an inch tall, you're allowed to use a death control grip, right? You're allowed to use a death control grip any time you want, of course. But generally speaking, I don't want to use this kind of grip because it doesn't lead to pleasant marks, interesting marks. Wow. I'm saying wow because all of a sudden I've got what looks to me very much like a good likeness on this little girl already, so that was nice. I'll try not to lose it now. That has happened. that has happened. I've had a likeness and then lost it. Not a happy moment. Especially if you don't know why you lost it. What just happened? It looked like her a second ago, you know. I've had that experience. I'm mixing up now a mid-tone flesh, a mid-flesh tone, mid-tone, medium. So I can go ahead and do the shadow side of her face. She's got that quintessential squinting at the beach look about her eyes. That look we all get when you're asked to smile in the bright sunshine at the beach. A little bit of a squint. Okay, now I'm going to do the highlights on her face, and maybe I'll be done. I'll be done at least for this go round, as they say. Now, a portrait this size is, by necessity, of course, is more abstract than a larger portrait. And that's part of the reason why achieving the illusion of likeness is, in a sense, easier, because the painting is simply going to stay as it is right now. It's going to stay more abstract, so that the viewer's mind, your eye, turns this into that girl, because you're especially if you knew her, if she was your niece, say, you would your brain would automatically turn this little smudge of paint, half an inch, the size of my thumb. Your brain would turn it into your niece. Isn't that cute? It's pretty bad when the artist himself has to compliment himself. Hey, Uncle 60, good morning to you. I hope you're well. Thank you for hanging out with me again. I'm assuming you're painting, Uncle. Is that right? Uncle puts me, like many others, puts me in the background, which is the perfect place for me. Puts me in the background while he paints. I heartily approve of that course of action. Yeah, that looks like her. That makes me happy. My go-to color for blonde hair is yellow ochre mixed with titanium white, of course. Yellow ochre, or if you want to, I have a color on my palette that I can get by without it. It's not on every palette, and that is Naples yellow, which is a lot like yellow ochre, but even lighter. It's like a pale yellow ochre. That's actually what's on my brush right this minute. Although I could achieve the same color just with yellow ochre. So it kind of helps to have a go-to color, if you will. Like, what color is blonde hair? I don't usually do go-to colors for different things. Not usually, but I do, at least at this season of my life, I do for blonde hair. Just start with yellow ochre and go out from there by what your eyes are telling you to do. All right, that makes me happy. That is cute, and considering the size of the painting, I'd say it looks just like her. Let me make a quick comment explanation again about the use of black pencil. Again, unconventional, as I've already said. So, don't. I can imagine many purists raising a hue and cry, saying, "No, you can't use pencils in oil." You know, that would be the traditionalists among us, and that's okay. I sort of expect that. But first of all, it is a wax base. Now, when I say wax, that is not very unusual in the art supply world. For instance, in fact, I think the Jerry's Artorama store that I shop at actually has it listed. They have a whole bunch of pencils, charcoal pencils, and these and all kinds of pencils, and they have them listed by category, and these are listed as an oil pencil. And what they mean, they're not saying like it's an oil stick or an oil marker. They're being very fundamental. Bleaching the basement floors. Wow, that must smell good. Good for you, man. Uncle's hard at work anyway, working hard while he listens. Again, that's a good way to listen to me. They say it's an oil base and wax base. I'm using those two terms are synonymous, as opposed to a pencil, a charcoal pencil that might use water as a binder. So that's the distinction. They're saying, okay, is this, and by oil, again, they mean, you know, like vegetable oil, sesame, and again, it's not a greasy pencil at all. Anyway, I digress. I feel some people might be very nervous about using a medium like this in their painting and say, well, that's archivally. Well, and we don't know. Honestly, I'm going to come back in 150 years and find out exactly how my paintings are doing. So get back in touch with me then. We'll meet and discuss it, shall we? So really, nobody knows. But I feel pretty confident. I feel pretty comfortable that because they're an oil-based pencil, that mixing them with oil paints is not a bad thing. Now, in a minute, I'm going to go to this lady over here. There's her photograph, her paintings on the floor. And you will see that I've actually used a watercolor pencil on her painting as guidelines. I took a watercolor pencil and made some lines through her face. And again, some people would say, whoa, what's that going to do, you know, archivally? So here's my thinking, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong more than once in life. That's an understatement. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Here's what I think. Let's talk about what paint is, first of all. All acrylics and watercolors and oil paints, they are all pigments, and generally that means ground up powders, ground up rocks, ground up minerals ground up very finely, and then suspended in a medium of some kind, right? That's all that it is. It's not like there's not this magic thing out there called paint, if I may. So just have a little bit of understanding of what is meant by when we say paint. What is it? It's ground up rocks. I like to jokingly say ground up dirt, suspended in a substance. So when it's watercolor, what is it ground up in? What is it suspended in? Well, ox gall, and it was the old traditional. I was looking over here, and I just happen to have some Arabic gum. All right, this is gum that dissolves in water, and that's one of the basic mediums in watercolor. Just makes me look very artsy, very artsy. To have a bottle of Arabic gum in my studio just makes me, you know, on those days when I'm a little insecure, I can look over there and say, oh, I really am an artist. I have a bottle of Arabic gum. Let's move on to oil paint. So what is oil paint? It's ground up dirt, ground up rocks, traditionally mixed with linseed oil, which is, by the way, the same, just in case, I know you already know this, but somebody might be watching who doesn't know it, is the same as flaxseed oil, which is the same thing you get in the health food store to add to your food, because flaxseed oil, according to some people, is good for you. Well, how about that? So linseed oil is actually a nutrient. I don't know that I'd launch right into eating my oil paints. If I was starving literally to death, though, I bet you, I bet I would. Thankfully, hopefully that will never happen. But, so what is oil paint? It is pigment suspended in a medium. Now, there's, besides linseed oil, now there's walnut oil. Hang on just a second. One of my favorite companies, I'm looking for a tube of their paint, is Charvan, and they use poppy seed oil. That's right, there it is. Poppy oil. Okay, so whatever. So my acrylic, of course, ground up dirt mixed in acrylic plastic medium. The point being, I don't have any sound. Hang on just a second. Hello, Julia. Good to see you again. Bear with me just a minute. I don't know why I'm not getting any sound. That might be why almost nobody's watching on Facebook. Bear with me just a minute. Let's see if this is going to work. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Come on, come on, come on. I know YouTube, I know I can see you. You can hear me. Oh my goodness. I have no sound. Bear with me just a minute. Let me change cords, change cable cords. Hang on, hang on, hang on. That's terrible. All right, now do we have any sound? Bear with me again just a minute. Believe it or not, when I change the cable, I have to turn my ear monitor off and turn it back on again before it starts working. Oh, come on. Test 1, 2, 3. All right, now it looks like we're getting a sound. Facebook, I should be having... There we go. Hang on. Sound. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. Whew. Sorry about that. Facebook, I didn't say anything important or interesting for the first 10 minutes of this broadcast, I promise. So you haven't missed a thing. I've missed people who've come by and said, why can't we hear anything? I know. So turns out I had a bad cable. It's always something. All right, I'm going to do the light side of this girl's shorts, and then I think I'll be done with her and ready to move on to another painting. All right, Facebook, sorry about that bad streaming for a while there. I had a bad cable. I hope that that's all fixed now. All right, the good news is, let's call that done for now. I have to do a little bit on this painting, weeds in her hand, and the sky needs to be lighter, but other than that, I'm finished with that painting. Yahoo! That's a good feeling to have. Now, moving to something perhaps a little more challenging. I started this yesterday. This lady's name is Nancy, and I'm sorry, Facebook, our stream is very, very unstable, isn't it? Right before I started broadcasting then today, I drew a line on her face, and you can see this is laminated, just makes it easier to work on. And I drew corresponding lines here with watercolor pencil. And I have a mechanical device here. And let's see which one is bigger. This one's bigger, so the small side goes over here. So let me recalibrate again, make sure that from center of pupil to center of pupil, and then turn over. Oops, not quite, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Let me check that again. Checking it yet again. I'm sorry, I'm not. All right. Now, I'm going to start measuring some of the vertical things here, from the line eye to eye to the bottom of her nose. Whoa, very close. That's a nice accident. I did this, of course. I can see things wrong with it. Her mouth, this side of her mouth, needs to move that way. But I decided to go ahead and start using tools anyway. Tricks of the trade. Let's do a bottom of her chin. Close. Not close enough. Now, on a face this large, you know, 1/4 inch isn't quite as disastrous as it is on smaller faces. But, all right, now let's do, this thing, by the way, is called a proportioner. If you want one, go to my YouTube channel, click on Community, and drag down till you see a picture of this device. And there is a link there showing you where you can order one, okay? All right, this is to the bottom of her bottom lip, which I take it must also, yeah. So here, I don't know how well you can see this, or if you're getting getting an understanding here. And we have lost our Facebook people altogether. That's very sad. But the pencil marks, see, this is what I was talking about earlier. The fact that this line is in pencil shows me it's a correction of the paint marks. Okay, let's do now. So finding that has really just developed here in the last 2 weeks while I've been doing these fast portraits. That this trick, if you will, of using the pencil, and it's because it's different from the paint. So I'm finding it quite helpful. Okay, now I'm doing just doing her lips right now. The top of her teeth, or if you will, the bottom of her bottom of her top lip. And finally, from that cross to the top of her top lip. I already did a measurement. Her nose was right. Okay, indeed, for sure, I should have seen this. Now I see it. It's like, what was I thinking? I had her nose essentially the right length, but the gap between her nose and her top lip was too deep. That's really dumb. All right, let's continue. Let's do the width of this eye. Let's do, I don't know if I can do something as fine as the height, I guess I can, the height of her eyeball. It's almost as small as this device will go. I'm not sure how much it's going to help me anyway. Yeah, okay. Now, I've got a lot, well, no, wait, let's do to her hairline. So I have a lot of the vertical measurements are now corrected. Let me repeat what I've been saying. Whoa, hairline way too low. Wow, 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 wow. Once again, the fact that this is a pencil line helps it to stand out from the paint line, so I know which line to believe. Believe the pencil line. All right, we finally have our friends on Facebook back streaming again. Deepest apologies to you guys. Now, let's do from the center guideline to the outside of this nostril. Boom, I'm basically perfect there. That's a surprise because my eye told me that might be off. So let's do from the center guideline, oh, can't do it, to the bridge of her eye. Can't be done. All right, it's too small of a measurement. Let's do from the center guideline to the edge of her nostril. Oh, way off there. What? Are you serious? Okay, time for another tool. From the center of her pupil inside the center of her pupil. Oh, her mouth comes down too far this way. How about that? Now, let's do her mouth. This is a big one. This is a big, critical measuring tool here. From the center guideline to the far edge of her mouth. I see what's wrong here. It's another case of I thought such and such was the mistake. I thought her mouth needed to move this way. Wrong. It's actually her cheek that needed to move this way. Okay, so that's another. I've talked a lot in the last couple of days about how so often when you're doing portraits, what you think is the problem, your first guess, your first intuition as to what's wrong is often erroneous, is often that's not what's wrong. It's often, no, hang on, I have a conflict here. Because this is telling me her mouth was all the way to there. Okay, if I start getting myself all confused, then I'm going to abandon broadcasting and get this straight. Not because I'm embarrassed, just because it gets a little tedious if I have to start doing all this stuff twice, so to speak. Okay, from right where the lower edge of her nostril, ear is right there. And I didn't even get around to doing her ear yesterday, so that's fine with me. Let's check the width of her eye. This looks to me like I got this pretty close. Let's use this device to double check and see if yeah, good enough. All right, what I might need to do now with all these pencil lines is just take a little while and go ahead. The one thing that is disturbing me is the edge of her mouth. I'm going to let's double measure, double check. Measure twice, cut once. Remember that if you're a carpenter. That's what it says. And yet, when I put this portable grid on her eye, right in the middle of that pupil, it's just outside the edge of her mouth. So I'm going to put the middle of the pupil there. Wow. So that something disagrees there. Let me triple check the distance from the center line to the center of that pupil. It's supposed to be that far. Oh, well, that helps. There we go. This eye is supposed to come all the way over here. Then that would make that work out. All right, this is getting so messy now that I'm having a hard time seeing what's what. So now, this is, again, a bit of a trick that I've just developed in the last couple of weeks, actually. I am always developing new tricks. I hope you are. Hello, Treadfall, and hello, Jeremy from Oregon. Good to have you. Thank you for joining me during these fascinating days through which we are living. All right, so now I'm going to cover up the pencil marks. I'm going to paint over them, if you will, with paint. Partly because this re-accentuates them, makes them even a little bit more darker, stands out a little bit more. And of course, it gets rid of the irritating pencil look. I like the irritating pencil look because it helps me figure out what's what, but I don't want it to be a permanent part of a painting. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And then in a minute here I will start painting for real, if you will, with light flesh-colored paint. I'm going to go straight to red for her lips. We lost Facebook again. Now I'm painting with much too bright of a color right now. And again, that's just my little trick. It's like blocking in color, okay? So it's not going to stay this color. This just helps me see, oh yeah, those are lips. Okay, I'll worry about that. May not be the most sophisticated way or the best way to paint. It's just for me, a shorthand method for seeing what's what. Okay, again, the traditional term blocking would be very appropriate for what I'm doing right now. I'm just blocking in color, not worrying. Later in the process, all right, do we have sound? Facebook, are you back? We are. Facebook is back. Deepest apologies to all you Facebook people. I'm going to go ahead and use the red that's on these brushes. By the way, when I do start working on color, by the way, that's where this, just lost Facebook again. That's where this laminated photograph comes in handy. So I worked in Photoshop enough time, adequate, so quite a while. I worked in Photoshop quite a while till I could print. So I had to print off several pictures. Does that make sense? You can't trust what you're seeing on your screen, of course. It wasn't until what came off my printer I determined was adequate or appropriate color. That's what I was aiming for, not what it looks like on my screen. And I will do a little primer lesson on my use of Photoshop here soon. I don't know if I'll do it today or not, but for those of you who want to see that, I'll do that here fairly soon, I believe. And I'm going to go to some larger brushes, Yahoo, to do some flesh tone. My go-to color for flesh tone happens to be oxide red, sometimes called transparent oxide red, same thing, and titanium white, of course. And then I just go from there according to the color. So her face, her flesh is much yellower than that, so I don't stick my brush in cad yellow, egads. You could do it that way, but it'd be an awful lot of work. So, wow. So here's the trick. If you can't see the paint you just put on there, then that's exactly the right color. So I just happened to accidentally right this second, for right there anyway, I put down a piece of color and it was pretty near perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and spread a lot of this everywhere, even though of course there's a lot of different colors on her face, but this is a good base coat. And it's time to try to cover up some of those, what are now awful, awful black lines that I used earlier as corrections. So I don't want them to stay, so I paint over them from both sides, both the red and the flesh tone. Throw your brush. When in doubt, throw your brush down. And again, I'm just using the color that's on my brushes right now as it was a very good match for the mid flesh tone over much of her face. It'll all be painted over, of course, with more precise colors. Now adding some red to that, since I had it right there on my palette all ready to go. Now I'm hoping that here in a minute I'm going to start seeing a likeness of this lady, Nancy. I'm going to add now some raw umber, student grade raw umber to this mix. And Facebook, I understand we're going in and out on you. I'm desperately sorry. If you want to watch this, go over to YouTube. Very strange. So yesterday Facebook was noticeably better, I believe. Today it's doing terrible. Once again, I'm going to order a new camera. I don't have a lot of money to throw around at equipment. Otherwise, I'd have ordered it already. Just to make you feel, I don't know, a little bit better about yourself, maybe. I've lost about $30,000 worth of contracts have fallen through in this coronavirus season. Now, some of those some of them are weddings that will happen later in the year, but that doesn't help me pay my March, April, May mortgage very much if I do the work in October, right? So I am living through exciting times, as are many of you. We're all in this together, and we honestly have no idea where it's going, do we? Exciting times. I hope you're not full of fear. I am truly not. Maybe I have the gift of naivete. It's very possible. But if I do, I invite you to be like me. Of course, I'm one of those crazy people who has a faith in a Father who's working all things out. It doesn't mean that we, believers, won't suffer along with everybody else, at least externally. Internally, we shouldn't be suffering at all. And again, it might be because that I'm naive, but I'm really not suffering at all. My heart goes out to those who are. I don't usually wax very spiritual on my broadcasts, because I don't want to do the old bait and switch, and I don't want people to think that I'm here to, evangelize. Okay, at the moment, I'm not seeing much of a likeness popping up here. That distresses me a little bit. But I will say, at the risk of freaking out some of you, it has become fashionable among the domineering culture of the dominator members of our culture, to mock the expression thoughts and prayers. It's become quite fashionable in the last year to mock the expression, you're in my thoughts and prayers. Well, mock away. Of course, that if you don't believe there is such a thing as a God and that prayer does anything, of course, what would you do but mock? But I hope that some of you are second guessing your mockery, and perhaps now this believe me, I understand the what's the word, the the determination of a committed atheist agnostic will not be swayed by such happenstance as a worldwide plague. Believe me, I'm not that naive. But most atheists are not committed. They're just careless atheists. And those, some of their mockery may indeed encounter a change of heart. And even by saying any of this, I understand that I'm opening myself up to all kinds of mockery. By the way, since I've gotten this deep, I'll go a little deeper. Not my norm. Those of you who watch me often know. But just in case you don't know, some of you who are, now the term religious is absolutely abhorrent to those of us who are followers of Jesus of Nazareth. Absolutely abhorrent. We do not consider ourselves religious at all, and those who do, I consider to be more part of the problem than the solution. Religion is the bad. Anyway, here's an irony you might not know, that if we are followers of Jesus, we are not allowed to mock and rail and scorn and scoff. That is an avenue not permitted by our very fellowship of Jesus. And I want you to know, it's not because it's not because we couldn't if we were so inclined. It's not because, so I'm not sure unbelievers, so to speak, quote unquote, understand that. Why are you guys so stupid? Well, part of the reason is because we're not allowed to be smartasses. We can, but we've immediately ceased to follow Jesus when we pick up the sword of the tongue and behave like everybody else. That's why we can't, that's why we have to appear stupid. Well, I thought several years ago I went through a phase where I thought, I know what, I'm going to tell people I'm a follower of Jesus, and yes, it embarrasses me considerably. I know how offensive faith is to the intellect, to this smart-ass intellect of unbelievers. I'm not unaware of that. We're aware of a lot more than you probably think we are. Anyway, all right, let's get off spiritual things. Who knows what kind of chats, what kind of response I'm going to get from that little rant. Be that as it may, I will indeed pray for those who are suffering, because I believe prayer actually works. And we have lost our Facebook friends again. Hello, Richard. Thank you. Thank you, Maggie. We are in your thoughts and prayers. I appreciate that. All right, I'm beginning to see a little bit of a likeness here. I'd like to see a lot more of one, but it's beginning to creep out little by little by little. Creep out, that's funny. I mean, come up from hiding kind of creep out. Come out from under a rock. There's a bit of a likeness just beginning to emerge. Because right at the moment her eyes are rather black holes. That doesn't help much with in the likeness department. I am not very comfortable with this gap right there, so bear with me just a minute. Let me look at that. Let's measure. Let's do some more measuring. We keep losing Facebook. I think. Okay, hang on a second. I want to do center line. Center guideline, which I can still barely see on my painting, to middle of little pupil. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now let's do, that's right on. Let's do center guideline to far end of that eye. Right there. Yeah, close enough. All right, now to the edge of her head. This one's the one that I think, yes, there we go. That's the one that's wrong. There we go. Whew. Happiness is figuring out what's wrong. Now let's do the edge of her head at the top of her eyebrow. See what that looks like. Yeah. Whew. All right, I had her head too wide up here. Let's do now at the apex of her cheek. not her cheekbone, just her cheek right there. Let's see how that comes out. Here we go. As I thought. I already moved her cheek in one time. I need to move it in again. But in the meantime, let's pick up that green paint. And get rid of all this stuff out here. My apologies again to you Facebook friends. We keep disappearing on you. I know we do. It's a mechanical issue. Yesterday it was doing much better. Today is doing much worse. So I'll probably stop trying to broadcast. I'll do a few tricks first. I'll do a few tweaks to see if that helps. But if it doesn't, we'll give up on Facebook altogether today. Sorry about that. All right, there, that helped. Woo! Again, happiness is finding out where you were wrong. I don't know if everybody does portraits this way, but I do. Rejoice when you find out where your mistakes are. I'm beginning to get a little bit of a likeness. Not much yet, a little bit. I suspect that with this kind of broadcasting, if nothing else, I'm helping non-artists to get a little bit of a correct impression about what it's like to be an artist, what the work is like. I discovered a couple weeks ago that some people think it's like being Bob Ross. You just sip on your latte and talk in a hippie voice and just in a leisurely, mindless manner, put in happy little cheeks. And of course he didn't do portraits, there's a reason for that, but paint, you know, happy little things and so on. They had no idea that an artist literally worked mentally, worked as hard as you see me doing here. In fact, if I may even write, I don't think you're watching right now, but I was working on Wright last night and he was watching and he said, because he watched me work on him for quite some time, and he said, golly, am I that hard? Okay, so even Wright, who was an artist. No, everybody's that hard. It wasn't you at all, my friend. That's what it's like. Now, again, you might say, well, I have a friend who's an artist. I know, you know, lost Facebook again. Until I end this broadcast, I pretty much have to just keep restarting Facebook. I'm not going to interrupt our YouTube broadcast to go solve the issue that needs solving. I'll do that after this broadcast is over. Okay, now I need to get these lip colors a little more accurate. Whoops. That sounded like a disappointed whoops. It's not. Again, I hope you understand what I'm doing. This is a great trick. I picked it up from Mark Carter on YouTube, on his YouTube channel. That's Carter with a D. He's a big dog portrait painter. And he recommended, now one of you suggested that you could accomplish the same thing simply by putting your photograph, your print, in a plastic sleeve, and I am going to try that. My suspicion is it might work to a degree. My strong suspicion is that it won't work nearly as well as actually having the picture laminated, but we'll find out. I will do an experiment here. Not today, but I look forward to doing that in the near future. So you mix up your colors, and then you do a dab, there on the plastic laminate. And if you can't see the mark that you just put down, then you've nailed the color exactly. Of course, more often than not, you miss it by some significant amount, and then you make an adjustment. Lighter, darker, more or less intense, or changing the color, making it more yellow, blue, green, red, orange, whatever. All right, it's close enough. I act like I'm ignoring this woman's eyes, don't I? I might be. I have been known to avoid But let me finish these lips a little bit before I move on to her eyes. Okay, this a little more concave, convex, I mean, curving this way. Here. There's still a slight darkness between her lip and the flesh tone here, which is not at all accurate, so I want to get rid of that. We've lost part of her nose now. Let's fix that. What do I mean we've lost part of her nose? What I mean is, that's a crazy way to put it. Her nostril needs to be higher, more arched. And now it's too high. Welcome to the world of portraiture. Okay, gonna leave that for a minute. Now let's go up to her eyes, shall we? Remember, the whites of the eyes are virtually never white. What color are they, Mr. Dan? Well, that's a good question. They are whatever color they are. And that's where this plastic sheet will help us a good bit. Whoa, that's like 10 times too bright. Whatever 10 times means. It's a meaningless term in this context, but it's an outburst. Now, the question might be asked, well, can't you make the whites of her eyes slightly lighter than they are? And the answer is yes, you can. Absolutely, you can make them slightly. But I'm not in the ballpark of slight yet. I'm like making my colors still way too light. I can make it ever a teensy weensy bit lighter. But that's all. One of the biggest mistakes that early portrait painters make, one of the biggest mistakes they make is making the whites of the eyes too white. And I'm convinced that it's simply the word itself. The fact that we call it the white of the eye gets us into trouble. Because, of course, what does white mean? Everybody knows what white means. It means white. So subconsciously, without analyzing, without realizing that that's what we're doing, we reach for the white paint. You watch. You look at amateur portraits. One of the most ubiquitous mistakes you'll see it over and over and over again is somebody making the white too white. I'm just again using a pencil here to make a correction. We have a likeness emerging slowly. I'm happy to report. I'm happy to report that it's emerging slowly. I'm unhappy to report it's emerging so slowly. There. So again, welcome to I think, the real world of portraiture. Some of you might be saying, well, what about those guys that I see at the fair that do portraits on the spot? Okay, I'll say several things. Number one, some of those guys are amazing. And I, being a journeyman portrait painter, have a better respect for how good they are than you do if you don't know. Okay, so high respect. Number two, so after being nice for a moment, I'm going to be not so nice. Yeah, most of the time they're not very good. They get close. Now, let me back up. Some of them, many times, they're amazing. And I've tried my hand at that, portrait there on the spot. And I find myself woefully inadequate. So there's people better than me. But after having been nice for a minute, now I say, yeah, but many times, they're not as good as they ought to be. The best I've ever seen, I mentioned this several times, the best I've ever seen are the old Chinese guys. I don't know why they're Chinese. I don't know why that's significant, but that's what they are. They're Chinese. So I asked last time I was in Manhattan, I saw these Asian guys, because they could be, Japanese, Taiwanese, Korean. Anyway, I asked, and they readily said, no, we're Chinese. And I said, how did you get so good, this old guy? And he said, I've been doing it since I was 5. End of story. He didn't say end of story. That's inside. That's what I said. There you go. That explains it. That explains why I'm not that good, because I have done all kinds, because I'm a landscape painter primarily. Now, just for what it's worth, I'm not trying to, what's the word? I'm not giving myself excuses for being bad at portraits by saying I'm a landscape painter, but you all know the fact is I'm a landscape painter. But I'm a landscape painter who wants to be a far sight better at portraits than I am. So that's why I'm working on it as hard as I am, because I want to be better at it than I am. We have one person on Facebook. I don't blame them for getting off. Facebook, by the way, is a different animal than YouTube. I've heard this, and I'm learning it, that people flash by on Facebook. And they don't, unlike you YouTube people that are, some of you, crazy and willing to hang in here for minutes and minutes, if not hours and hours. People don't usually get on Facebook with that same kind of mindset. They're just flashing by. So greetings to anybody who might be listening at the moment and is flashing by. Good to have you for a minute. If you want to watch more of this, go over to my YouTube channel, where the feed is much more dependable. I sure am doing an awful lot of right-handed painting here. In case you wonder, yes, it bothers me. and I'm just about getting portrait blind on this go round on this painting, which means it's just about time for me to move on to another painting. I will not be working long today. My wife and I are going out for an afternoon and evening, just for a date, no, it's kind of funny having a date in these days, isn't it? So we're going to strap our bikes to the back of our car and go look for interesting places to ride where we can maintain our social distance and go through a drive-through of coffee shops. Like what my wife likes to do for a date is go out to eat. She's very easily pleased in that regard. But we can't go out to eat. All we can do is go through a drive-through. So we're going to do that somewhere. Hopefully sit in a park at the top of a hill, look on the world from a safe distance. All right, I'm just about to the point where I'm driving myself crazy, because I can see that there's lots of little errors here, but I'm not seeing instantly what they are. So that's the signal that it's time, just about time for me to move on. In fact, honestly, past time. But before I do that, I want to re-whiten her teeth here a little bit, real quickly. So let me go back to the whites of the eyes and the whites of the teeth. Two of the most common mistakes you see in early portrait painters is the teeth are too white and the eyes are too white. Okay, so that's a mistake. Now, having said that, however, is it legal to make the teeth and the eyes slightly whiter and wider and so on and so forth? The answer is of course, of course, of course. And the guideline there is you can beauty cheat, you can beautify your portraits. How do you know if you've gone too far? The answer is it looks like you've beautified it. Does that make sense? If your client can say, oh, you took 10 pounds off me. If the client says that, then you took too much off. You do indeed want to take, typically, you want to elongate people. That's pretty standard. You just want, in my opinion, you don't want to elongate them so much that they're then offended. Like, what? Do you think I'm fat? I remember the first time I really began learning this. It's about 20 years ago. I was doing a very, very, very realistic portrait of 4 beautiful children, all in the same family, all teenagers. And I elongated all of them, especially the 2 older girls. 3 girls, 1 boy, especially the 2 older girls. I just intuitively, I was just very early in my professional portrait career. And I never told them, still haven't to this day, haven't told them that especially one of the girls, they were all beautiful. But one of the girls had a more square-ish head, whereas the other one had a elongated, almond-shaped head, if you will. And I said, I bet you this girl with the square head probably compares herself to her sister and wishes she had her shaped head. So I elongated that sister a tiny bit, and I feel like I got away with it because nobody ever said anything. They said, oh, they look lovely. And they didn't say, you made her narrower. And again, they were all beautiful, okay? So it wasn't like I had to do anything crazy. All right, I'm definitely seeing a likeness here. That's good news. Bad news, nah, I'm kidding. I was gonna say the bad news, it took me this long to get there. That's not really true. Whoa, okay. And this is a good time to end this broadcast because my phone just told me my battery is down to 15%. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to try to decide what to do with our Facebook friends. I'm going to reboot everything. That's about 4 or 5 different pieces of equipment, and see if that makes a difference. And when we come back, we may be with Facebook or without them. Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.